بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Takaful online course. And today is a continuation of the discussions of the Wakalah, as we have started in the last two sessions talking about the Wakalah as one of the leading and prominent contract in Takaful. Today we carry on starting from the classifications of Wakalah. Of course, I have to highlight here that the description and the discussions and the description of the Sharia contract that we go through is a high-level descriptions. We go into some discussions, yes, but we don't dive too deep on it, but we just provide an overall descriptions that highlight its concept, features, some classifications, some basic ruling. Just to have a proper understanding on the type of contract that govern the Takaful. So with regards to the Wakalah, we have two types of Wakalah. We have Wakalah Amma, or a general Wakalah, and or general agency, and basically Wakalah Khasa, or a specific agency. Similar to Mudaraba, what we are going to discuss in the future on Mudaraba, we have Mudaraba Mutlaqa and Mudaraba Muqayyada, meaning general Mudaraba and restricted Mudaraba or specific Mudaraba. It's very close. The classifications, if you map the classifications of Wakalah against the classification of Mudaraba, you find them somehow very close to each other on the restrictions of the scope of the contract. So when it comes to the general agency or Wakalah Amma, it is basically a type of Wakalah contract where the principals basically gives a complete permissions and authorizations to the agents to act on his behalf on all matters and affairs. So as you can see, the scope is very wide, is a kind of authorizations, a kind of the mandate from the principal to the agents to transact, to act on his behalf in all matters and affairs. So it is very scope, and the scope is very wide, and it's very rare to find this kind of Wakalah because of the risk that may involve in it. So this is one type of what's so-called Wakalah. Now the second type of Wakalah is Wakalah agency, or Wakalah, I mean specific agency, or Wakalah Khasa, where it is a kind of Wakalah whereby the agent is authorized to act within a limit of the authorizations granted and provided by the principal. And basically has no right, I mean the agents has no right to exceed the restrictions of that kind of limitation. Here basically it is more workable, more proper, more convenient, where the risk is well managed. So you have an authorization to act on behalf of the principal, but that authorizations has basically a limit within the scope of the mandate of the assignment. So it depends what kind of authorization the principal will give it to you. So now if you apply this kind of classifications to the Takaful, we'll find that the second kind of classification, which is the Wakalah Khasa, is more relevant to the Takaful. Why? Because the delegations or the authorizations granted by the participant to the Takaful operators is to act on behalf of the participant within a specific mandate. So the mandate is restricted. The authorization has limit, which is more or less related with the administrations of the contributions, administrations of the claims, the disbursements of the payments of those claims, the underwriting process, the receipt of the funds with the Takaful, the distributions of the surplus, and other related matter related to the marketing, related to the operations, related to the compliance with the regulators, and so on and so forth. So despite that the activities of the Takaful operators is here and there a bit comprehensive, integrated in the market, but yet that kind of job is acting within the scope of the Wakalah Khasa that has been restricted by the participant. Now the other point we'd like to highlight is basically which is one of the related basic rules of Wakalah, is that the agents has no right to appoint a sub-agents except with the permission of the principal. Why? Because the Takaful operator or the agent himself is an agent. So he cannot put a sub-agent and their authorization has been granted by the principal. That's why in the context of the Takaful operators, despite Takaful operator DO is an agent, but you can see that the Takaful operator will contract with sub-agents for marketing purposes. That one is authorization. That one is authorized and allowed, taking into account that this is this permission has been granted within the legal documentations, within the mandate and the scope of the Takaful operators, within their act, regulations, and policy, and so on and so forth. So we assume that permissions has been granted by the participant as they are acting in a form of principle to the agents. As a result of that, the Takaful operator basically is allowed to contract with the sub-agents for different purposes. And as you know, the Takaful agency force is one of the very crucial aspects of the Takaful operator, as it is driven by thousands of the Takaful agents on the ground for the purpose of promoting those policy to the public to address basically issues and concerns related to the saving, investments, and protection as well. The other point we'd like to highlight is that when the principal appoints more than one agents, so the same contract in the same contract, no one of them basically should have the sole decisions unless the authorization, with the authorizations of the principal. Meaning that if there is a kind of a combined appointment of agency together in one contract, so basically these agents will act together and the decision should be a collective decisions. And you cannot act solely as an individual decisions unless permission is granted by the principal, or somehow a kind of clause in the agreement has been captured that kind of authorizations. The other point related to Wakalah is that if they have been appointed, meaning the agents have been appointed in a separate, by separate contract, of course each of them has the right to discharge his responsibility independently unless the principal require joint actions from them. This is again the first scenario that we have highlighted. All together have been appointed in one contract, so it will be collective decision unless permission is granted by the principal. The second one is an individual and separate contract. So in this case, so everyone will have the right to act independently within the mandate unless the principal again put a clause that a collective decisions is required by them. So this is some basic rules for the Takaful. The last point we would like to highlight in these sessions, and we close basically the contract of Wakalah, is the act of the uncommissioned agents, meaning the act of Al-Fuduli. Al-Fuduli or the meddler or uncommissioned agent is a person basically who act and interfere of the affair of the others without a prior authorizations from the owner. So meaning that he's not authorized to sell, but yet he will sell. He's not authorized to lease out, but yet he will lease out. He's not authorized to do some things belongs to you, but yet without prior authorizations, he will transact on your behalf. This is, we call it the act of the meddler or the act of the uncommissioned agents. And again, to recap, the uncommissioned agent al-Fuduli is a person who discharges the affair of others without being agents of having right to do so by virtue of Sharia, meaning authorizations has not been granted, delegations has not been provided, but yet he will interfere in the affair of the others. Now, when it comes to such actions, so what is the Sharia status of that actions? Is it permissible? Is it approved? Is it declined? So what's the status of that kind of transaction? that has been conducted by the uncommissioned agents. So basically, the approval here or denial of the contract concluded or the transactions concluded by the uncommissioned agents is subject to the directions and the decisions of the ultimate owner. So if you sell something without my permissions and I'm the owner, so that contract will be pending on my decision. If I agree with the transaction, so the transactions will be valid. If I deny and reject the transaction, so the transactions will be basically rejected. So it goes back as up to the ultimate decision making of the owner. And basically, this ruling of uncommissioned agents is applicable not only in Takaful, but throughout the financial transactions, meaning that it could be applicable to Islamic banking, Islamic capital market, normal trade conducted in the market, and including Takaful as well. So all have the same rules, whereby transactions will be pending on the ultimate owner or the principal of that particular asset in the transactions. If he agree and validate that transaction, it will be approved by Sharia. And in case he reject and he doesn't like the transactions, so the transactions will be revoked and it will be rejected and considered from a Sharia standpoint invalid. So this is in overall the last remaining points in the Wakalah, and with this, inshallah, we come to the end of the contract of Wakalah, and at the same time the end of the sessions, and we shall see you inshallah in the coming sessions with other contract inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.